Hi, I'm Alan Holman. I'm the curator at the Hampton History Museum. Welcome into our Hampton 1 Design Exhibit Gallery. We've been talking a little bit about the tools that were used in the boat building trade. Now I want to talk a little bit about how the workers would have worked in building boats. I spoke with a lot of folks who actually met and worked for Vincent Syria in his days in the shop in the 1940s, 1950s, and 1960s. And they described to me a workplace that was very agreeable, but also very structured. And they all described to me that at the end of the day, 45 minutes before 5 o'clock, they would begin to clean and oil their tools, and every tool would go back into its tool chest. Scattered throughout the exhibit, and of course, 40 years before, 60 years before, through Vincent Syria's workshop would have been tool chests. And these tool chests would have been organized according to Vincent's idea of which tool belongs where. And at the end of the day, all of those put away in those tool chests and organized. This particular tool chest has a story all of its own. It is, unlike the other ones here, a unique color, this light blue, painted, not left raw. And that has a story of its own. Margaret Syria was Vincent's wife. She ran Syria Boatyard. Vincent was the artist. Margaret was his manager. So she kept the books. She turned the stock. She did all of the business end of the business. She was notorious for having an absolute accurate feel for how much material was required for every job, including how much paint was to be parceled out to the boat painters that worked for him. So they would say, well, we're painting a star boat today. She knew a star boat took 2.5 quarts of paint. So she would give them 2.5 quarts of white paint for the hull of the star boat. If 2 ounces of paint came back, she knew they didn't put on the paint thick enough. If they ran out before the 2.5 quarts of paint were used, she would know they were slathering it on too thick. But what they did have, ultimately, was at the end of the day, there would be drops of paint left. Half a cup here, a half a cup there in the paint that she had handed out. All of that paint, being economical as she was, would end up in one bucket, which was called the Smudge Bucket. And everything in the shop that was not painted on contract was painted from these leftover bits of paint, all mixed together in one bucket. And this tool chest here was actually painted from the smudge, that mixture of paints that came from the returns at the end of the day. So this blue smudge could be any color at the end of the day that was left, but this blue tells a story of its own.